Hey guys, Mrhappy here. Today, I want to talk about how to level mining and botany. Now, I know I don't do a lot of fieldcraft or tradecraft videos, so I feel like this one's a little bit overdue. So a lot of people ask me how to level their gathering professions, and I have come up with a list of leveling tips that should help propel you to level 50. Keep in mind, I have not yet dabbled too deep into fishing, so a separate guide will be coming for that in the future, considering the way that it's done is also significantly different. I feel that that's only fair. It's much more unique than mining and botany are. This guide will therefore only apply to botany and mining, however, it will apply equally to them both. Despite the fact that I will be showing you this entirely on mining, you can use these tips for anything, really. So first, let's cover the basics. Both mining and botany have a main hand weapon and an offhand weapon. Each weapon allows for obtaining items for different types of gathering nodes. As you can see here on my minimap, there are two different color nodes for the same gathering class. Although I am only showing mining in this example, the results are similar when you switch over to botany and compare two of those nodes. Now, gathering at any of these points and successfully obtaining an item will reward you with EXP. That's pretty self-explanatory. For this reason, you must be sure to get as much of the gathering stat as possible while leveling, and you'll get this mostly through gear and through your main hand and offhand weapons. By having higher gathering, the large percentage number you see here will increase. This number shows your odds of success at obtaining a specific item on a per attempt basis. The number under it represents the odds that you will obtain a high quality item. Obtaining a high quality item yields significantly more EXP than obtaining a normal quality item. So for this reason, you'll also want to try and get your perception as high as possible while leveling. Please keep in mind that the odds of high qualitying, I guess if that's an adjective, an item is capped at 15% through stats alone. To further increase the odds of obtaining a high quality item, you must use abilities such as Unearth or Deep Vigor, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Additionally, for each consecutive successful gathering attempt, you will gain a chain bonus similar to the chain bonus you get from killing several enemies in a row for battle classes. This bonus increases up to a total of plus 50% experience points obtained. Now, for gatherers who don't wish to use any fancy leveling tips and just want to gather over and over again, finding items you can gather with a high success and HQ rates repeatedly is really the key. For that reason, you'll probably look for items that are slightly lower level than you, just so that your stats influence how successful you will be a little bit more. Not too much lower than yourself, but just a little bit. Still enough to get some good experience points per gathering attempt. However, this gets extremely monotonous, so I'm going to recommend a few things that you can do to add boosts to your EXP. So first, make clever use of your abilities, and this will always yield good experience point returns. The most common abilities you will use are Sharp Vision and Unearth. Sharp Vision increases your chance of success, while Unearth increases your chance of getting a high quality item. If your chances of success are high on an item, it's usually best to use Unearth to increase the chance of high quality. If your odds of success are low on an item, using Sharp Vision will keep your chain bonuses alive, which do add up after you get enough of them. Both of these abilities are best used right at the start of gathering, since they will persist throughout the entire gathering attempt, whether that be 4 attempts, 5 attempts, 6 attempts, doesn't matter, it will persist. Now, these abilities, as well as others on your list, use gathering points or GP. GP is very similar to MP and TP in terms of its effective use. However, it generates at an extremely slow rate of 5 GP every 3 seconds that you aren't gathering. Additionally, you obtain 5 GP for every successful gathering attempt. Failed attempts will yield no GP. Keep this in mind for later when we talk about accelerated means of leveling, mining, and botany, which we'll get into pretty quickly. Just want to say also, your abilities use a ton of GP, so make sure that when you do use them, you're using them at the right times on the right types of nodes. So now that you know about all of these points, we'll talk about your gathering log. This is a log of where to obtain every item in the game, or at least a general area. You can use abilities such as Lay of the Land and Lay of the Land 2 to find the ones you need exactly once you're in a zone and you kind of know that they got to be nearby. Using a mix of those two will help you hone in on those specific points. So the first time you gather a specific item, you get a large boost of experience points. So a good way of gaining experience points is to stay up to date on your gathering log. This boost will diminish if you're a higher level than the item you are gathering, so do these as you level for nice boosts of experience. Remember that both mining and botany offhands have their own gathering logs as well, so you really want to stay on top of all of them as best you can to get the most experience out of your 1 to 50, I guess, guide or or path or goal. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, goal. So I'd say that those are all the basics of leveling, gathering. So let's get into the stuff that you can do to boost these sort of effectiveness. So this will include items and quests that you can do to boost your experience points. So a lot of gatherers that I notice when I'm out in the field tend to actually forget to use food. There is food in the game that will increase your gathering stats. For leveling purpose, I highly recommend investing in gathering food or cooking it yourself if you have a culinarian. I personally use tomato pie since they have a very high gathering and they also have some perception. So when I'm leveling on mining nodes that are slightly higher level than I am, they really help me get to those high success rates and that 15% HQ rate. So depending on how you are leveling, there may be better foods for you. Some that give GP, some that give higher perception, some that give perception and GP, just different foods altogether. So check on the market boards for some good items. Next are gathering manuals. These manuals can be obtained from your Grand Company. There are rank 1 manuals and rank 2 manuals, and they cost anywhere from about 1,500 to 2,500 Grand Company seals each manual. This means that if you buy a lot of them, the amount of seals that you spend can really add up quick. But I highly recommend purchasing these as you head out onto the field if you have Grand Company seals that you're not using for anything else. These items are unique, and therefore you can only hold one of each manual. However, since there is a rank 1 and a rank 2 manual, you can hold one of each of those in your inventory, but you can't hold something like, let's say, 2 rank 2 manuals in your inventory. If you know you're going to be gathering for a long time, there's a trick you can use to get around this restriction sort of. Just simply buy the manual from the Grand Company, use it so that you have the effect, and then buy another one, and then when the effect of the first one runs out, you simply use the second one. This is going to drain your points even quicker, but you know, if you're going to be gathering for 4, 5, 6 hours, you might as well have that boost. Keep in mind, these boosts only work up to either 20,000 for rank 1 or 40,000 extra experience obtained, meaning that, well, once you obtain 40,000 extra, it wears off well before the 3-hour mark is over. And the final items that I recommend are Cordials. These are potions that restore 300 gathering points when used and sit on a 4-minute cooldown. These potions are amazing when waiting to get GP back, considering how long it actually takes to get back. However, they can also be quite expensive on some servers, so I don't recommend buying them. I'll go over how to obtain them in a little bit when I get to another leveling method. So the next thing you can do to help increase your leveling speeds are to make very good use of the supply and provisioning missions from your Grand Company. These missions are available once a day and require you to hand in a handful of items around your level range to your Grand Company. There are NPCs all around that actually give these quests, and for example, this one is in Whitebrim. Any of the Grand Company leave NPCs should be able to take supply and provisioning items from you if you have them out on the field. These quests reward a nice once-a-day boost of experience points that you can obtain additional EXP from handing in high-quality items. So a lot like leaves, if you crafting leaves, if you hand in a high-quality gathering item for them, they will give you a small boost in experience points. I believe it's a 50% boost. For example, if the quest was originally worth 20,000, it will give you an extra 10,000 on top of that. They also do reward some Grand Company seals to help make up for those you may spend on the manual, so they don't come close really, considering you can only use them once a day, but they do help. You can also check when they reset. I know they reset at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for me, since I'm on that part of the clock. So keep that in mind. If you really want to check that, you can actually check your timers here in the bottom right. It'll tell you when your next leave allowances are, what supply and provisioning missions are available, and when the next supply and provisioning missions will become available. And finally, the final and most important part of your gathering experience for leveling, I think you saw it coming, leaves. Gathering leaves are by far the best way to level your gatherer after doing all the other steps above for multiple reasons. The first, they are fast and repeatable, usually within the same area that you accept them. Second, they do not require items that you personally mined or harvested or gathered in any way, and therefore they do not fill up your bags when you do them. And finally, they do reward cordials. This is the big one. If you are lucky in an area, you can obtain several cordials per hour to use on subsequent leaves or solo mining experiences, however you decide that you want to use them best. I personally recommend saving them for leaves, and we'll go over that in a little bit. So I want to talk more in depth about these leaves because there are more than one type of gathering leaf. Now, there are actually 3 kinds of mining and botany leaves. The first kinds are simple fetch leaves. These leaves will require you simply to obtain a certain number of an item within the time limit. The only way to fail this leave is to not collect that many items within the time limit. Usually the quest requires you to find 40 of an item. These leave quests are best used to help restore GP for the other higher experience point yielding gathering leaves. The reason being, since you require 40 items to succeed and you get 5 GP per success, you'll at least generate 200 GP completing the leave alone. You'll also likely generate another 50 or so from walking around, so this boosts your GP up 250 points, which is just great. Besides the EXP from these, it's actually pretty good. So considering the most you can get is the amount you get from the 40 leaves, the only bonuses you'll really get are from the chain bonuses. So as long as you have a good success rate, you shouldn't really need to use GP on these quests. The next type of leaves are exploration leaves. These ones require you to explore several gathering points and obtain a minimum number of items to succeed. If you do not require the minimum number within the amount of nodes that they have given you to gather from, you will fail. I'd still also use these just to generate GP back, although using a few points to ensure that you don't fail the leave is fine as well. That's the most important part, is the completion bonus that you get at the end from, well, completing it. And the final, and in my opinion, the most important type of gathering leave are evaluation leaves. These leaves require you to obtain as many items as you can from a set number of gathering points. This means you can get as many items as you want. Let's say there's 8 gathering points and you can gather 6 times. At most, you'll be able to gather 40. At least you could gather 0 if you're really that unlucky and get no experience points. On top of that, depending on the quality of items that you find, you will obtain evaluation points. Obtaining a certain amount of evaluation points will yield a boost to experience points gained at the end, up to 25%. There are the leaves I recommend using GP on, and they're for a very good reason. The first reason is that you're able to obtain increased EXP from the harder items. These are the only leaves that give you a choice of 2 items to gather from. There's one that gives you lower evaluation points but is easier to obtain, and one that gives you more evaluation points but is harder to gain. So you'll want to pretty much try and use your GP to get the harder level ones to A, get more experience, and B, increase your odds of getting to the final evaluation bonus, which is the second reason why I think that you should use your Cordials or your GP abilities on these. You need to succeed as often as possible with your individual attempts to get the 25% bonus at the end. Using Cordials and Sharp Vision on these quests yield extremely high EXP returns. Not only will you obtain higher EXP per item because you're getting the harder of the 2 items, but at the end you'll also obtain the 25% boost, which is just the best you're going to do when it comes to these gathering leaves. So if you're wondering about the individual locations of gathering leaves, there's actually a forum post that has them all compiled. I will leave it in the description below. Thank you all of those who helped bring this list together. It is an immense help to the gathering community. And of course, the last thing is every 5 levels, you get a quest from your guild to gather a bunch of stuff. Do these every few levels to get new weapons and gear. However, just be sure that even without these missions, before factoring in what you'll get from them, that you are keeping up to date on your gear. It makes a big difference when it comes to gathering between how successful you are and how many HQ items you get. Trust me, don't skimp on the gear. It'll help you in the long run. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this guide. If you did, please like, favorite, subscribe, and share for more Final Fantasy XIV information. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. You can ask me questions, make recommendations. I appreciate all feedback, so don't feel bad. You can also leave a comment below, although I do get a lot more comments now, so I usually don't have as much time to check them. I recommend that if you really want to get in touch with me, Facebook, Twitter, or even YouTube, although YouTube's become a little bit harder to do that with as well. But anyway, guys, again, thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.